People are often surprised when they learn that I'm a food inspector. You? An inspector? You can hear the doubt in their voices. Thinly disguised disbelief. I seem too soft-spoken, too quiet, too harmless, to be the one pointing out others' mistakes. But in 34 years, I've closed 17 establishments that pose serious health risks. I'm proud of that. Though I never say it out loud, there's a plaque in the back of my closet. My co-workers gave it to me on my 30th work anniversary. Marjorie. Twist, the menace of unsanitary conditions. A joke, of course, but not entirely untrue. At work, I'm respected. I'm a professional. At home, it's different. The alarm clock dragged me out of the sweetest kind of sleep. I fumbled for the button on the nightstand and silenced it. 5 more minutes, I thought, rolling over. Elliot, my late husband, used to say, "Marjorie, you'd sleep through your own funeral if you could." It's been 5 years since he passed. I still sleep on my side of the bed. When I finally sat up, it was almost 8. Damn, late again. Shower. Foundation to cover the age spots. A little blush. At 62, you fight back in small ways. My home in Little Rock is modest. 2 stories, 3 bedrooms, a backyard full of roses. Elliot once dreamed of a bigger place, something with a pool. But this house feels just right now. Manageable. Familiar. Quiet. In the kitchen, I reached for toast. The sausage in the fridge looked suspicious. Occupational hazard. I can't ignore even the smallest signs of spoilage. So, it was peanut butter toast and strong black tea. My schedule today. 2 restaurants on the west side and a new bakery downtown. But before work, I gave myself 15 minutes in the garden. May is perfect for roses in Arkansas. I knelt beside the tea roses, my favorite. Elliot had always preferred the red ones. "They're as passionate as you are at heart, Margie," he used, to tease. We both laughed at that. I've never been passionate. I'm steady, practical, predictable. As I pulled weeds, hands in the soil, I felt peace. But the phone shattered it. Corbin. Double quotes. "Hi, Mom. Delia and I are stopping by tonight. You home?" His voice was casual, detached. "We need to talk." I translated automatically. That usually meant one thing. Money. "Of course I'll be home," I said. "Great." 7. Don't cook. We'll eat before. The rest of my day passed like clockwork. One restaurant had improper meat storage. Warning issued. The other was spotless. And the new bakery? Impressive. I complimented the young owner and she blushed. "Thank you, Mrs. Twist. I was so nervous about your visit." I smiled. My reputation still meant something. Back home by 3:30, I baked an apple pie, not for them. They'd already eaten, but for me. There's comfort in cinnamon and dough. A recipe passed down from my grandmother. I wondered if Delia ever taught Zoe, my granddaughter, how to cook. Somehow, I doubted it. At 6:30, the pie was cooling, and the house smelled like memory. I changed into a blue dress with a white collar. Neat. Safe. Appropriate. A little lipstick. A little blush. Elliot always said I didn't need makeup, but it helps. Without it, I feel faded. At 7 o'clock sharp. The doorbell rang. Corbin in jeans and a wrinkled shirt. Delia, in a designer dress that showed off her perfect figure. I always feel clumsy around her, though she's only 24 years younger. "Is that a new dress?" she asked, eyes scanning me. "Interesting choice for your age." I smiled politely. We sat. Tea was poured. Corbin helped himself to whiskey. Delia to wine. No one offered me anything. "So," I said, breaking the silence, "what did you want to discuss?" Corbin cleared his throat. "That landscaping job I told you about, the big one." I nodded, though I didn't remember. I need to upgrade my software. Maybe a new tablet. It's standard now. Costs around $7,000. This project could really open doors. Delia added smoothly. They looked at me expectantly, as if my agreement was a formality. I'm not sure I have that much, I said honestly. But I did, in savings. Money Elliot and I had set aside for emergencies. Medical bills. The unexpected. Come on, Mom, Corbin pressed. You got the insurance. The coin collection. You barely spend. Where does it all go? I'm getting older. Medical costs. You've got insurance. And we'd take care of you if anything happened. Delia gave him a side glance but quickly masked it with a smile. Of course, Marjorie. But this is about helping Corbin succeed. I glanced at Elliot's photo on the mantel. What would he say? But Elliot's not here. I am. Alone. Okay, I finally said. I can give you $5,000 now. The rest next month. Corbin smiled, a real smile, and hugged me. Thanks, Mom. I promise. I'll pay you back this time. But we both knew he wouldn't. They left soon after, turning down the pie. I stood at the window and watched them drive off in their new SUV, the one I helped pay for last year. I sat down, alone again. The house smelled of apples and cinnamon, and quiet resignation. Way. When their car disappeared around the corner, I went back into the kitchen and cut myself a piece of pie. It was perfect. The golden crust, the juicy cinnamon apple filling. I ate slowly, savoring each bite, drinking my tea. And I tried not to think about the fact that I had just agreed to give away another $5,000 that I would never see again. The evening. News on TV didn't catch my attention. I switched channels aimlessly until I stopped on an old detective show with Humphrey Bogart. Detectives are my weakness. Elliot had given me a whole collection of Agatha Christie books for our last birthday. Together. I've reread them all several times. Sometimes I think I could write my own detective story. The case of the missing mother's money. Not a funny joke. Before I went to bed, I pulled out my checkbook and wrote a check. $5,000, almost a tenth of my savings. I looked at my signature, neat, measured letters. Marjorie Elizabeth Twist. That signature once carried weight in our family. Now it's just a tool to get money. I put the check on the knitstand and turned off the light. Tomorrow will be a new day. I'll wake up later than I should again. Rush to work again. Life would continue as usual. But somewhere deep inside, there was a growing feeling that it couldn't go on like this. I just didn't know how to change it yet. Mrs. Twist, these forms are due by the end of the day. Nancy, the new employee in the department, placed a folder of paperwork in my desk. I nodded, not taking my eyes off the microscope. The sample I was examining showed the presence of bacteria in a sample taken from a new Italian restaurant, Trattoria Bella. The owner, an emotional Italian man with a bushy mustache, is sure to make a scene when I present him with the violations. But it's my job to make sure people don't get sick. Minus Miss Johnson wanted me to tell you that you've also been put in charge of inspecting the new school food line. Nancy added, lingering at the door. She says you're the only one she trusts on this matter. I finally looked up and smiled. Miss Johnson, our principal, has always relied on me in difficult cases. School nutrition is politics, parents, the administrative board, and all on top of normal safety standards. Assigning me to this role is a sign of trust. Tell Miss Johnson I'll look into it on Monday, I replied. When Nancy left, I returned to the microscope. Here in Little Rock's Food Quality Control Lab, I feel like I belong. There are no condescending glunts, no veiled requests for money, no feeling of being invisible in your own family. After completing my research, I compiled a detailed report on the abuses at Trattoria Bella and sent it in for approval. then tackled themes that Nancy had brought in. Routine work, but requiring attention to detail is my middle name. At 5 o'clock, the workday was over. I packed my things, said goodbye to my co-workers, and headed for the exit. Miss Johnson caught up with May in the hallway. "Marjorie, I wanted to personally thank you for agreeing to take over the school food service. The mayor has called 3 times this week, and he's very concerned about the Fageville incident. I read about it." I nodded. 32 kids with food poisoning? Pure irresponsibility, exactly. And I know that if you take over our schools, that won't happen. Here, she squeezed my shoulder lightly. You're our most experienced inspector, and I'm glad you're still with us, despite the possibility of leaving. Webeth knew what she was talking about. After Elliot's death, a lot of people expected me to retire. After all, I was already 57, and money wasn't a problem. But work is the only place where I feel needed, where my opinion matters. I'm not going anywhere, Helen. I smiled. Not until you kick me out. That's out of the question. She laughed. I'll see you Monday. On the way home, I stopped at the supermarket to buy groceries for the weekend. As I pushed the cart between the aisles, I remembered that Sunday night Corbin and his family were coming over for dinner. It's a tradition from my time living with Elliot. Though now I often wonder if they're coming over because of family affection, or because of my cooking. Pondering the menu, I decided to make a roast. Corbin had always loved it. After filling the cart with the necessary ingredients, I headed toward the register when I noticed Beverly Whitmore, my neighbor, studying the cheese display. "Beverly," I called out. She turned around and waved hello. Beverly was 65, but looked younger because of her vigor. A widow like me, she had moved into the house across the street 3 years ago, and had since become my only real friend in Little Rock. Marjorie. "Darling, I was just thinking about you." Beverly walked over to my cart. "What do you say to a glass of winner tonight?" I opened the bottle of red my son had sent me from California. It was too good to drink alone. "I'd love to," he agreed. "I'll just get the groceries home and join you." An hour later, I was already sitting in Beverly's cozy living room. Our house was decorated in the Mediterranean style. Bright colors. Lots of pottery photos from her travels. Beverly had traveled extensively since her husband's death. "It's something we always planned to do together," she said. "But Richard was always too busy. Now I'm doing it for both of us." So Beverly handed me a glass of rich red wine. "How was your week?" "The usual. Work, home, work again." I took a sip. "This wine is really excellent, isn't it? Jeremy says it's some kind of special harvest year. I don't know anything about it. I just want it to taste good." She settled into the chair across from me. "What about Corbin and his family? Have they stopped by this week?" I hesitated to answer. Beverly was the only person I could talk frankly about my son with. Last night they asked for more money. Beverly shook her head. "And you gave it to them?" 5,000. I stared into my glass, avoiding a gaze. "For his business, new equipment." "Marjorie." There was concern in her voice. "We've talked about this before. They're using you." "He's my son, Bev." "Yeah, but that doesn't mean he has the right to siphon money out of you every chance he gets. How many times has he borrowed money? And how many times has he paid it back?" I didn't say anything. We both knew the answer. "Remember last year when Delia wanted a new car?" Beverly continued. "He came to you with a story about how their old car kept breaking down and being a danger to Zoe. A week later, Delia was driving around in a brand new SUV that cost more than your house. It was for Zoe's safety." I tried to defend my son, but the argument sounded unconvincing even to me. Marjorie, Beverly, leaned forward. I'm saying this as a friend. You're letting them take advantage of you. And it's not just the money. I've seen the way they treat you like you're some kind of, a burden, instead of a mother and grandmother. It took another sip of wine, feeling it warm my throat. Beverly was right, but admitting it out loud was like betraying me own son. You know, I said after a pause, when Corbin was 12, he saved up for a new bike. He saved every dollar he got for cleaning up leaves from the neighbors or helping Mr. Jenkins in his store. Elliot was teaching him the value of money and labor. Somewhere along the way, those lessons had been forgotten. Beverly nodded. People change, especially under the influence of other people. I don't want to speak ill of your sister-in-law, but she's greedy and manipulative. I finished for her. You think I don't see that? The problem is Corbin changed before she did. After college he was different. Different, like he was ashamed of me and Elliot, of our simple lifestyle. Memories came. Suddenly. Corbin coming home for the vacations with new friends talking about yachts and ski resorts. Corbin bashfully showing them our humble home. Corbin constantly comparing us to the parents of his classmates who were doctors, lawyers, businessmen. When he brought Delia over for the first time, I hoped she'd make him happy. I sighed. And maybe she does. It's just that happiness is built on material things they can't afford. And that's why they use you as an ATM, Beverly concluded. We sat in silence, each immersed in our own thoughts. Then Beverly got up and brought out a plate of cheese and crackers. Let's change the subject, she suggested. Have you seen the new episode of Murder at the Manor? Detective Malloway finally figured out who poisoned the Countess. We spent the rest of the evening talking about detective shows and Beverly's plans for her next trip. She was going to Portugal in the fall. When I got home, I was relieved. Beverly had an amazing ability to make me feel understood, even when we disagreed with each other. On Sunday, I started cooking dinner first thing in the morning. The roast was slowly simmering in the oven, filling the house with an appetizing aroma. I baked apple pie, the favorite dessert of Zoe, my 14-year-old granddaughter. Despite all the problems with Corbin and Delia, I genuinely loved Zoe and tried to keep in touch with her, though she had become increasingly distant lately, absorbed. In the world of teenagers. At 6 sharp, I heard the sound of a car pulling up. Corbin, Delia, and Zoe entered the house, bringing with them the cool evening air and the tension that had always accompanied our meetings in recent years. Hi, Grandma. Zoe gave me a peck on the cheek, and immediately looked into her phone. What's up, Mom? Corbin handed me a bottle of wine. Cheap, I noticed, though I knew they always had expensive brands at home. Great, thanks. I accepted the bottle. Come on in. Dinner's almost ready. Delia looked around the living room. Do you still have those old curtains? They're so 50s. I like them, I replied, trying to keep my tone friendly. They were a gift from Elliot's mother. I just thought you could freshen things up. At your age, it's important to keep up with the times. At her age, Corbin said with a slight chuckle. Comfort is more important than fashion, isn't it, Mother? I didn't answer. Busy arranging cutlery. Their comments about my age always hurt. Delia is only 24 years younger than me, but she talks as if I were an ancient old woman on the doorstep of a nursing home. Over dinner, the conversation turned to Corbin's work. His landscaping company had been around for 7 years. But despite that promising projects he kept talking about, the financial situation always seemed to remain precarious. How's the project for the new apartment complex coming along? I asked as I put the roast on my plate. Great, Corbin perked up. I got the new equipment. That computer and programs I was talking about. I've already created preliminary visualizations and the client is thrilled. Glad to hear it. I tried to sound sincere. Maybe this time things will really work out well. Yes, it could be a breakthrough for the business, Delia added. By the way, we're thinking about remodeling the kitchen. Our cabinets are totally outdated. I almost choked on my wine. They just got $5,000 from me. And they're already planning another big spending spree. Weren't you going to put money aside for Zoe's college fund? I asked cautiously. Mom, college is 4 years away, Corbin said. Besides, there are so many options for financing and education these days. Loans, grants, debt, I added quietly. What did you say? Delia raised her eyebrows. I said that student loans are debts that then hang around your neck for years. Well, not everyone can afford to pay for college out of pocket. Delia took a sip of wine. We don't, have a stockpile of cash to just spend. That was a direct allusion to my savings. I felt the color rush to my face. I just wanted to say that planning for Zoe's future is more important than new kitchen cabinets. And I don't think you should be telling us how to raise our daughter. Delia put down her fork, especially since your parenting methods are, shall we say, ambiguous. What do you mean? I tried to remain calm. Well, Corbin always says Sion were overly strict. All those rules, restrictions. Modern parents use more progressive methods. I looked at my son, expecting him to stand up for me, to refute what my wife was saying. But Corbin shrugged awkwardly. Times were different, he muttered. Yes, times were different, I agreed, feeling bitter. Back then, children respected their parents. Respect has to be earned, Marjorie, Delia countered. It doesn't come automatically. Come on, Corbin interrupted. We're here for a family dinner, not an argument. I noticed that Zoe was staring tensely at her plate, clearly uncomfortable. Zoe, how was school? I asked, trying to change the subject. It's fine, she shrugged, not looking up. The teachers are annoying. Zoe's in the school play, Delia said proudly. She's playing the lead. She is, that's great. I was genuinely excited. What play? Romeo and Juliet, Zoe mumbled. I'm playing Juliet. She needs a dress for the play, Delia added immediately. The costumes have to be authentic. And the school insists that the parents take care of that. And there it was, the real reason for the visit. I felt my heart squeeze. Can't they just come for once for no ulterior motive? I'm sure you'll find a beautiful dress within your budget, I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. The thing is, Dia leaned forward. We've already found the perfect dress. But it costs $600. $600 for a costume for a school play. I couldn't hide my surprise. It's not just a costume, Mom, Corbin interjected. It's an investment. Zoe can use it for other events. Plus, if she decides to study theatre arts in college, it'll be a good start for her portfolio. I thought you were planning a kitchen remodel, I remarked. Is this a good time for that kind of spending? That's why we were thinking. Dia began that I could buy a dress. I finished for her. It's for your only granddaughter. Delia smiled. That special smile she saved for when she wanted money from me. Don't you want to see her shine on stage? I looked at Zoe, who was now looking at me expectantly. Of course, I wanted her to shine. Of course, I loved her and wanted the best for her. But why did that always have to translate into money? Why did our relationship come down to that? Of course, I want Zoe to be happy, I said slowly. But Mom, Corbin leaned across the table. This is very important to her and for us. I saw Delia tense, slightly preparing for my rejection. I saw the hope in my granddaughter's eyes. And I saw the look on my son's face. A mixture of impatience, slight embarrassment, and confidence that I would eventually give in, as I always did. Let's have dessert first, I said. rising to fetch the apple pie. I stood in the kitchen for a minute, breathing deeply. Beverly was right. They were using me. But what could I do? Say no, and see the disappointment in Zoe's eyes. Say no, and give Delia another excuse to say mean things about me behind my back. By the time I returned with the pie, the conversation had already turned to Delia's job. As a public relations specialist for a pharmaceutical company, she liked to talk about the important people she had to talk to about business lunches at expensive restaurants. Last week, I had lunch with the editor-in-chief of the Arkansas Times. She bragged, "They're going to do a story on our new drug." "That's great." I handed out plates of pie. "Zoe, I'm Maddie, your favorite." "Thank you, Grandma." She smiled weakly. "But I'm on a diet." "Dieting?" At 14, I looked at Delia in surprise. "All the girls in her class are watching their figure," Delia explained. "It's normal. It's normal to starve yourself when you're a teenager." I shook my head. At her age, her metabolism. "Marjorie," Delia interrupted. "Today's ideas about healthy eating are very different than they were in your day. Science has moved on." "Yes, Mum," Corbin encouraged her. "Things are different now. It's hard for you to understand because you're old." I finished for him. "Outdated with backward attitudes." "That's not what I meant." Corbin looked confused. "That's exactly what I meant." I set my fork aside. "You both keep insinuating that my views, my experience are worthless because I'm older than you, and you're not shy about asking me for money every time you seem." There was a heavy silence in the room. Zoe stared at her phone, pretending not to hear the conversation. Delia straightened her eyes, narrowing. "Is that what this is about?" She smiled coldly. "Do you feel like we only value you because of the money? Don't you?" It looked her straight in the eye. "When was the last time you came just like that without an implicit request for financial help?" "It's not fair, Mom." Corbin shook his head. "We're a family. Families help each other." "Yes, but the help has to be mutual." I objected. "When was the last time you asked me if I needed help? Am I lonely? Wasn't I tired of living alone after my father died?" Corbin looked as if I'd hit him. Delia bit her lip, obviously holding back a sharp reply. We didn't think, Corbindigan." "Exactly." I sighed. "You didn't think. And that's the saddest part." The insistent sound of my phone's notifications snapped me out of a deep sleep. I opened my eyes reluctantly, blinking against the bright sunlight, streaming through the slits in the curtains. The clock read 7:30. Too early for Wednesday, my day off. I wanted to roll over onto my other side and go back to sleep, but the phone vibrated again. With a quiet groan, I reached over to the bedside table and picked up the phone. A series of notifications from the banking app popped up on the screen. I put on my reading glasses and squinted, and began to look through the messages. Transaction notification. Attempted payment in the amount of $4,699.99 to Elegant Jewelry. Time 5:37 a.m. I sat up abruptly in bed, my sleep gone. $4,000 plus in a jewelry store at 5 in the morning. The next notification was even more disturbing. Transaction notification. Attempted payment in the amount of $2,800 at Travel Plus Escape. Time 5:42 a.m. My heart raced in my chest. I'd never made a purchase like this, much less at dawn. Something was categorically wrong. With trembling fingers, I flipped through the rest of the notices. There were 5 in all, totaling almost $10,000. All early in the morning, all at stores I'd never been to. I quickly checked my wallet in the bag in my dresser. The credit card was in place in the familiar compartment. I stared puzzled at the plastic rectangle. How could transactions be made if I had the card? Online fraud. But then, why did the notices mention physical stores? Throwing on a robe, I went down to their kitchen and turned on the coffee maker. I needed to clear my head before calling the bank. While the coffee was brewing, I checked my notifications one more time. Now I noticed that all the transactions were marked pending or authorization pending. This meant that the money hadn't been debited yet. I might have a chance to stop the suitorage. With a cup of hot coffee, I settled down at the kitchen table and started looking into the situation. The first call was to the bank's customer service. Good morning, First National Bank of Arkansas. How can I help you? The operator's voice sounded cheerful and professional. Good morning. My name is Marjorie Twist. I tried to speak calmly. There were some suspicious transactions on my card this morning, and I'd like to stop them. Of course, Miss Twist, I'll need to verify your identity. Can you give me the last 4 digits of your social security number and your date of birth? I dictated the necessary information, and the operator, who identified himself as Thomas, confirmed my identity. I see 5 pending transactions this morning, he said after a pause. Are you saying you didn't make them? Absolutely not. I was asleep at the time and I have the card on me. I see. In that case, we will block your card immediately and reject all pending transactions. You'll have to visit a bank branch to get a new card. You can also file a fraud report if you wish. Yes, please. Block the card. I exhaled with relief. Can you tell me exactly where they tried to use my card? Thomas gave me the addresses of the stores, all of which were in the Park Plaza shopping center in downtown Little Rock. I wrote down the information, thanked the operator, and ended the call. Sitting at my desk with my unfinished coffee, I tried to figure out how this could have happened. Who could have accessed my credit card or its data, and then it hit me? My phone. More specifically, the banking app that Corbin had helped me set up just 2 days ago. On Sunday, after a family dinner I tried not to bring up because of an unpleasant confrontation, Corbin noticed I was still checking my bank account on the computer. Mum, this is the Stone Age. He shook his head. Let me install a bank app on your phone. It'll be much more convenient. I agreed, and Corbin spent about 20 minutes downloading the app and setting it up on my smartphone. He entered my information, set up my fingerprint for quick access, and showed me how to use basic functions. There, now you're in the 21st century, he joked as he handed me back my phone. I thanked him then, thinking my son was caring. Now, I had my doubts. Could Corbin have somehow copied my credit card information? Or maybe he had customized the app so they could access my account. The thought was so painful that I tried to push it away. Corbin is my son. Despite all his faults, his condescending attitude toward me, his constant requests for money, he couldn't stoop to outright theft. Not my son. Not the child Elliot and I had raised with love and care. But facts said otherwise. The elegant jeweler's jewelry store was Delia's favorite place. She often mentioned it when she bragged about her new acquisitions. And the Travel Plus Escape travel agency. Wasn't that where she and Corbin had booked their trip to the Caribbean 2 years ago? The one I paid for to rekindle their marriage. I felt nausea coming up my throat. I needed more information before jumping to conclusions. I decided to call the stores where the payment was attempted. The first one was a jewelry store. After a few beeps, a woman's voice answered. Elegant jewelry. How may I help you? Hello? I coughed, trying to gather my thoughts. My name is Marjorie Twist. There was an attempt to use my credit card at your store this morning that I didn't make. The purchase. I'd like to know the details. Oh. The woman on the other end of the line sounded surprised. Just a moment, please. After a brief pause, she returned to the conversation. Yes, there was a transaction here in Twist name early this morning. A purchase of a white gold and diamond necklace. The transaction failed due to authorization issues, and the buyer said he would return later with another card. My heart skipped a beat. Can you describe the customer? Sure, the woman replied. A man in his 40s, dark hair, very polite, said he was buying an anniversary present for his wife. Description matched Corbin's. I thanked store employee and having completed the call, immediately dialed the number of the travel agency. There the story repeated itself. A man matching Corbin's description tried to book a trip for 2 to the Bahamas using my credit card. The transaction failed and he promised to come back with another card. I put my phone down on the table and covered my face with my hands. There was no more doubt left. Corbin had stolen my credit card information and was trying to use it to buy expensive gifts for Delia, my own son. Tears came to my eyes, but I forced myself to hold back. This was no time for weakness. I had to act. The first thing I did was call the other stores on the transaction list: a designer clothing boutique, an electronics store, and a spa. Everywhere, the story was the same. Corbin was trying to use my card to buy gifts that were no doubt intended for Dia. I then called the bank back and confirmed that all transactions had been successfully blocked. They promised to issue me a new card, which I could pick up at a bank branch within 2 or 3 business days. Finished with these urgent matters, I sat down on the living room couch, feeling completely devastated. Corbin's betrayal had hurt deeper than I could have imagined. It was one thing to ask me for money, even if it was all fair time, even if you knew you'd never get it back. But to steal it, secretly, copycat data while you pretend to help with technology. I remembered Beverly's words. They're using you now. It took on a new, more sinister meaning. How long had Corbin been planning this theft? Was it a spontaneous decision when he saw an opportunity while customizing the app? Or had he purposefully offered to help, already having a plan in mind? My gazephel on a photograph on the mantelpiece. Corbin at the age of 10, smiling with a fishing rod in his hands. Elliot stands beside him, putting a hand on his shoulder. Ah, proud father. It was summer. We went to Lake Waka. Corbin caught his first big fish and was so excited he almost fell into the water from excitement. Elliot had time to cheer Hyman. He was always there to support his son. What would Elliot say now? How would he react when he learned that his son had become a thief? Elliot was a man of principles, honest to the core. You wouldn't turn a blind eye even if it was his only child. The phone rang, interrupting my musings. Corbin's number. My heart raced. Does he already know the transactions didn't go through? Is he calling to come up with some excuse? Or maybe he doesn't know yet and is planning another attempt. I took a deep breath and answered. Hello. Hi, Mom. Corbin's voice sounded strained. How are you doing? What do you want, Corbin? My tone was colder than I'd planned. I was just wondering if there were any problems with the banking app I installed. Is it working fine? So, that's it. He's checking to see if I've noticed any attempted transactions. He probably already knows they didn't go through and is trying to figure out if I guessed. He was involved. Oh, the app works fine, I replied with feigned nonchalance. The notifications come in a timely manner, especially about suspicious transactions in the early morning hours. There was a long pause. Really? His voice shook. What kind of transactions? Don't pretend, Corbin. I couldn't hold back any longer. I know it was you who tried to use my credit card this morning. I talked to the people at the stores. They described you. Jewelry, Tripto, the Bahamas designer clothes. What? Are you throwing Delia a birthday party on me? Mum, I can explain. He sounded panicked. It's not what you think. What am I supposed to think, Corbin? That my son didn't steal my credit card information? That he didn't try to spend almost $10,000 without my knowledge? Look, Delia and I are going through a difficult time. Our anniversary is in a week, and I wanted to do something special to save the marriage. I was going to pay it back as soon as I got paid for the apartment project. Like all the previous loans, I was filled with bitterness. Corbin, you didn't ask me for that money. You tried to steal it. I would have told you later anyway. His voice rose. I knew you wouldn't approve of such spending, but I needed to save my marriage. Would you rather Delia and I divorced? For Zoe to grow up in a divided family? Manipulation. Manipulation again. He wastering to make me feel guilty for catching him stealing. Don't you dare hold me responsible for your actions. My voice shook with restrained anger. If your marriage is in jeopardy, expensive gifts won't save it. And if Delia stays with you only because of diamonds and traveling, what kind of marriage are we talking about? You don't understand. Corbin went on the defensive. Delia is used to a certain standard of living. Her parents have always lived off the grid. If I can't provide the same for her, then what? She's going to go tosser me and richer. I couldn't believe we were actually having this conversation. Corbin, listen to yourself. You're justifying stealing from your own mother because your wife likes expensive things. It wasn't stealing, he screamed. I was going to give it all back. Without knowledge and consent is theft, I said firmly. I blocked the card and cancelled all transactions. I've also filed a fraud report with the bank. What? He sounded genuinely shocked. You reported me to the bank? Your own son? I didn't give your name. I clarified. I just reported the unauthorized use of the card. But if the bank decides to investigate and goes to the police, you can't do this to me. Corbin sounded scared and angry at the same time. Do you realize what I'm in for if this goes to the police? My reputation, my business, everything would be ruined. You should have thought of that before you stole my card details. I felt strangely calm despite the storm of emotions inside. I always gave you money when you asked for it. Always. Even when I knew I wouldn't get it back. Why couldn't you just ask? Because you wouldn't have agreed to that amount off me. There was desperation in his voice, not for Dia's gifts. You never approved of my marriage. Never truly accepted her. It wasn't fair. I've always tried to get along with Delia despite her coldness and constant barbs. Did Delia have anything to do with it? I asked. Did she know about your plans? The long pause was more eloquent than any answer. Corbin, it was her idea, Heffinelly admitted quietly. She said you'd never notice if we were careful, that we could use your card several times before you suspected anything. My heart seemed to stop for a moment. Not only my son, but his wife was planning to systematically steal from me. It wasn't a spontaneous transgression, but an elaborate plan. I don't know what to say, I muttered. Yeah, I need time to think about this. Mum, please. Corbin's voice became pleading. Let's meet and talk. I'll explain everything. We'll find a way out of this situation. Not today, Corbin. I felt infinitely tired. I'll call you when I'm ready. I ended the call without waiting for him to answer and put the phone down on the coffee table. My mind was in chaos, anger, hurt, disappointment. Distrust, or all of those feelings fought for supremacy. My gaze fell again on the picture of little Corbin with Elliot. When had it all gone wrong? At what point had my loving son turned into a man capable of stealing from his own mother? And what should I do now? I got up from the couch and walked to the window. Street life went on as usual. Neighbors walking their dogs, children playing on their lawns, couriers delivering packages. A normal day in Little Rock. Only for me, the world had turned upside down. The phone rang again. This time it was Delia. I didn't answer it. A minute later, a message came through. Marjorie, we need to talk. There's been a misunderstanding. Please call back. A misunderstanding. Trying to steal $10,000 is a misunderstanding. I deleted the message without replying. I needed to gather my thoughts to decide what to do next. Should I go to the police, forgive them, and try to forget? Demand the return of all previous loans as a condition of my silence. I headed to the kitchen to make another cup of coffee. The day was just beginning, and he already felt like I'd experienced a lifetime. But one thing I knew for sure was that my relationship with Corbin and Delia would never be the same again. The line had been crossed, the trust broken. Perhaps somewhere deep down inside, I'd always known this would happen. That years of neglect, manipulation, and financial demands would one day lead to something like this. Perhaps that's why I didn't feel as shocked as I should have. The phone rang a few more times. Corbin, Delia, Corbin again. I didn't answer it. It needed time and space to think about my next steps. I wasn't going to make any hasty decisions under the influence of emotion, whether it was anger or a false sense of familial obligation. Grabbing a cup of fresh coffee, I walked out into the backyard to my roses. They always made me feel soothed. The May sun gently warmed my skin. A light breeze brought the scent of blooming plants. Nature continued its eternal cycle despite human dramas and betrayals. There was a wisdom in that. 2 days passed in agonizing anticipation. I didn't answer Corbin and Dia's calls, which came with depressing regularity. Sometimes the phone would go silent for a few hours, giving false hope of respite, and then start vibrating again with incoming calls and messages. Mum, please answer it. We need to talk. Marjorie, you've got it all wrong. Let us explain. Mom. It's just a misunderstanding. Call me back. Misunderstanding. They kept using that word. As if the attempt to steal $10,000 could have been a simple mistake. An accidental misunderstanding,